The American ruling class has extremely sophisticated propaganda. What makes it so sophisticated is that it doesn't rely on having a message which is its obvious message, because, as is well known, when people are being told think X, they naturally have a tendency to say, no, I'm not going to think X. People develop a resistance, a defense mechanism to any propaganda where the message is overt and obvious. No, the American propaganda avoids any overt, obvious message of the think X variety. Instead, American propaganda is of the form of having a big debate, a debate between side number one, which says think A, and side number two, which says no, think B. And side number A says, well, if you support the group B position, you're a terrible, horrible, immoral, bigoted, awful, idiotic person. And the other side says the same thing about people who support side A. And the ruling class creates side A and side B deliberately so that it is easy for the opposite side to point to it and make a credible argument that if you believe it, you're a terrible, horrible person. And the trick in these phony debates that are staged by the ruling class is that the aim is twofold. One is to pit people against each other as close as possible to right down the middle of the population, 50% on one side, 50% on the other. And so the social issues that the ruling class has been promoting public debates about come very close to doing that. The abortion issue, the same-sex marriage issue, transgender rights regarding, quote, bathrooms, which is really about public access showers and locker rooms mainly. These issues, from the ruling class point of view, are working really well as propaganda devices to turn about half the population against the other half, splitting us pretty close to right down the middle. And what they all have in common is that the two sides that are offered for public discourse by the liberal media on the one hand and the conservative media on the other, aka the left versus the right, the two sides both exclude what most people want. And that's the real brilliance of American propaganda, because the exclusion of what most people want is a silent exclusion. There's no big banner saying, hey, don't think this. No, it's just not even there for consideration at all. And so you're distracted by, the debate between, side A and side B. And what you don't notice is that what most people want is not even offered for consideration. So, to take some examples, in the abortion debate, and I'm posting articles I've written about this that goes into it in more detail, but the vast majority of the American public has a fairly good, decent, nuanced position about abortion, which is that there is a moral issue involved in killing a human life that hasn't been born yet. It's not a trivial issue. It requires real consideration, and at the same time, there are strong reasons why, under certain circumstances, it makes sense to allow a woman to have an abortion, and the judgment that's involved is a trade-off in considering the degree to which an unborn, call it a fetus or a baby, I'm not going to get into that, is should be considered a person, the killing of which should be considered murder, versus the understandable and reasonable desires of a woman to end a pregnancy. And most people make this trade-off by considering that there's a difference in degree of the degree of personhood of the unborn fetus or baby that that changes gradually over time from the moment that an egg is fertilized until the moment before the baby comes out of the birth canal. That there's a difference between the 1 second old fertilized egg and the baby 1 second away from being born, in terms of how wrong it would be to kill it. And so the trade-off that most people in the United States think is reasonable is to draw the line somewhere around the first trimester, and to have laws that, the Roe v. Wade, I guess it is, that allow abortions early in the first trimester, but not afterward. This is what most people find a satisfactory compromise with dealing with a dilemma of conflicting values and rights, which is what the abortion issue entails. But you see, the two sides that are promoted in the public discourse by the ruling class exclude that kind of reasonable thinking. On the one hand, you've got the pro-life people who argue that a 1 second old fertilized egg is the same as the baby 1 second before leaving the birth canal, as far as the moral issue of killing it, and it's wrong, it's murder in both cases, equally so, period, end of discussion. And then you've got the pro-choice camp arguing that that until the baby is out of the birth canal, it's not a person at all, and killing it is not has nothing whatsoever to do with murder, and there's no moral issue whatsoever. If they have bumper stickers that say things like, if you don't like abortion, then don't have one, which is basically saying there's no moral issue involved here at all. And to see how absurd that is in the eyes of people who know there is a moral issue that needs careful judgment. What if someone had a bumper sticker that said, if you don't like murder, don't murder someone? You see, that's would essentially be a way of saying, hey, murder's, it's not a moral issue there. If you don't like it, don't do it. But don't get upset if someone else does it, right? Well, we know murder is morally wrong, so that kind of bumper sticker would be rejected as absurd. But if you don't, the bumper sticker that the pro-choice people used, if you don't like abortion, don't have one, is basically announcing that they don't accept that there's any moral issue whatsoever involved in killing a fetus or a baby, before it's born. And most people know there is a moral issue. It has to be considered in a reasonable, nuanced way. So this is the exclusion of the reasonable views that most people have. And the purpose, of course, is the pro-life and the pro-choice movements are heavily funded by big money. And the reason is that the debate that they foster is extremely divisive, and the aim of big money is to make sure that we're kept divided against each other. I'll quickly refer to another example, which is the Transgender quote, bathroom laws. So really these laws are about public access, not just bathrooms, but public access locker rooms and shower rooms where people are going to be naked in front of strangers. The vast majority of people think that these public access facilities should be for people who have the same genitalia. People with male genitalia use the one, people with female genitalia use the other, regardless of whether you got those genitalia surgically or were born with them. Most people would say that's reasonable. And most people would also say that, yes, there are individuals, not just transgender people, but including transgender people, who, for one reason or another, would do not feel comfortable using a public access shower or locker room, no matter how the access is defined. And for such people, most people would agree that we should create facilities that are designed for just a single person to use. And the argument that that's expensive is a little absurd, given that we've spent more than $6 trillion on killing innocent people in Iraq and Afghanistan over the last few years. So, it's hardly a big expense to put up some curtains or build some separate facilities for the people who need to be alone when they're taking a shower or undressing. Okay, but the liberal law in Massachusetts and other states that's in effect now says that if a woman is in a public access shower room and a person walks into that shower room with male genitalia, and if the woman says to that person, you should leave, you're in the wrong shower room, that woman is guilty of a serious crime. And my linked article has the punishment for it, but it's a substantial fine or even prison, which is absurd, which is absolutely absurd. And but the liberal line is that you're a bigot if you don't think that this law is a wonderful law. I know one transgender person who told me, and I've seen the same view expressed on a chat line of transgender people, where they say that they have no desire to be in a shower room or locker room with people who have different genitalia than they do, no desire whatsoever, and that they consider a person who does want to do that to be ideological exhibitionism is how they described it. It's just wrong. But according to the mass media, this is what all transgender people want. They feel oppressed, if they have male genitalia but cannot shower in the women's shower room, it's not true. But big money funds some organizations that claim to represent transgender people, who claim that they feel oppressed if they can't shower in any shower room they want to. And so good people who don't want to be bigots, a lot of them feel obliged to support these crazy liberal laws, because they think it's bigotry not to. And other people who have a head on their shoulders and know that, their opinion is reasonable and not bigoted, look at these liberal laws and the liberals who support them as being totally idiotic. Divide and rule, working perfectly. Well, I've written a whole book on this, and I've written some articles. I'll post them at the bottom of this YouTube. But the key message here is that the propaganda works by never talking about what most people want. And of course, what most people want economically is no rich and no poor. And the idea of having a society based on no rich and no poor and real, not fake democracy is totally excluded from consideration. Every opinion piece and public debate in the mass media is basically about, it goes like this. Unstated, but the secret premise is, given that we are going to have a class society with some rich and some poor, and that real power is going to be in the hands of the people who have the money, not ordinary people, given that that's going to be the way it is, and the society is going to function to keep it that way based on the profit motive and so forth, given all that, which of course they never come out and say, that's what makes it so effective, but given that premise, do you want bad idea A or bad idea B? Go ahead and debate it. And the ruling class promotes the debate and laughs all the way to the bank. Please read my articles on this, and let's try to inject what most people want and thereby destroy the ruling class's propaganda. Thank you.